Today is May 29th, 2022. My name is Heather Wright, and I'm interviewing Mrs. Smith-Bailey for the Commemoration and Contextualization Initiative. We're on the University of Texas at Austin campus in the Moody College of Communications studios. Thank you, Mrs. Smith-Bailey, for agreeing to this interview.
Of course.
This interview is being recorded, and the unedited copy will be housed at the University of Texas libraries. Please know that if there is anything you do not wish to discuss, I will honor your wishes. If there are topics you wish to discuss and I haven't asked about it, please do bring it up. Lastly, if we need to take a break to use the restroom or to get a drink of water or for another reason, just let me know. All right, let's get started. Let's start with growing up. In Austin?
I did.
What were race relations like here in the city when you were in school?
As a child, I wasn't aware. I lived in a community where everybody in my little community was black, and I didn't have a whole lot of dealings. The elementary school that I went to was all black. So I didn't really realize there was a race relations issue. But as I grew up or older, even in my middle school years, that's when I started to notice the difference. And of course, all along, my parents were, of course, aware. And I think shielded me and my siblings. But it wasn't until then, in later middle school years, that I realized, there was just some issues. And I sort of was adapted. It didn't really make a whole lot of difference. There wasn't any turmoil or controversy in my school itself. And the only real racial differences were there were few whites, but there were more Hispanics where I was. And we got along fine. It didn't matter, A few whites at the school where you could see there was a little bit of, I guess, differences in our upbringing, sort of kind of things that we were made aware of. But it was, we were still kids. Didn't make a whole big difference, And so growing up, it wasn't really an issue. The only issue that I ever really encountered was later years in high school, and then, of course, in college.
So you said that in middle school you started to become aware of just things related to race. Can you tell me just a little bit more about that?
Some people, I think that I remember one instance when I was, there was no way I could try it for cheerleading. There was no way they just didn't do that. I'm like, why? And I didn't understand why they didn't do that, because all the cheerleaders are white. And they weren't Hispanic, and there were more Hispanics than really anything at my school. And this was a country school. We weren't right in Austin proper. We were in Hornsby Bend, which is a little bit out of the city limit, close to Weberville. And we couldn't try it for cheerleader, And I was like, why not? Well, the cheerleader advisor was white, and she was one of the white teachers, and all the little children that tried it for cheerleader were white. And they were, this is not even the big cheerleader thing. This is just a little cheerleader thing. We could have all been cheerleaders, really. But that was one of the experiences that I remember, that had to do with race.
And then how was it in high school?
In high school, it was more of a competitive thing, It was overruled because we were much more competitive. The black kids were much more competitive, much better at all the sports, much better at whatever else, So anyway, and I was a smart kid in high school as opposed to some of the other kids. And so if I tried out for anything or if I wanted to do anything, which I didn't a lot, because I was a smart kid and I just liked to do smart stuff. Academics, really. So I did that, and it was fine. It was, except for the fact that they were aware, that, so a lot of, like, for instance, cheerleading, I didn't really want to be a cheerleader anyway, but Drill team, I liked that. I thought that was kind of cool. Did that. Drill team captains, they'd never had any before. And now this is a more fully integrated school because it was in high school. And several of the girls, especially the white girls in the school, they were aspiring to be one of the major cheerleading squads or dance team squads that were in San Marcos and other cities that were around. And I'm just trying to hang to go to high school. I wasn't really aspiring to do any of that stuff, And it was always quite a competition, and it was monitored by the advisors, So some of the girls who, again, weren't as athletic, weren't as, good dancers, they got in because she let them in, So, and it was, I didn't really care that much, but it was pretty obvious, who her picks were and how they got in, and as opposed to being skilled enough or skilled as well. And so that was just one of the real evidence, that was one of the real obvious kind of things that we noticed about that. So, but we just played it cool. They couldn't outsmart me, so I didn't really care that much. Some of the students who were less talented or less skilled in academics did feel the pressure because that's all they had. That's all they really wanted to do. I'm like, well, and so, and they were still my friends too, and I helped them, when I could. But it was just obvious that was not something that, I was always taught, and raised to be an independent person, and I'm on my own. I can do my own thing. So, which is something that has really, really helped me along the way, especially going to UT, So you have to be confident in your own self or you'll get beat down pretty quickly.
I hear that. So, being from Austin, what had you heard about UT Austin before you came to school there?
That it was just a wonderful school. It was, one of the major schools in the whole United States. It's you wanted to go there, and from the high school that I went to, that was a big thing. Who's going to go to UT? Who's going to, I said, okay. And number one, it was affordable, However, the difference was, of course, affordable in that day and age was so much less than affordable now this age. But yeah, it was something affordable. It was at home. I didn't have to go very far, and I qualified enough to go, so it worked. It worked out for me.
Did you think about any other colleges or universities, or was it just I'm going to UT?
Did not. I was always planning to just go to UT because it was I could still keep my job. I started working at in high school, and I wanted to keep my job at Casual Corner because I could get clothes, and then I worked at the Capitol for the whole time I was at UT, and I didn't really consider anything else. It was too convenient, so.
What was UT's reputation in the community at that time?
Different for minorities. I didn't know until I got here that it was really not for minorities, so I heard. And I'm coming from a school where I think it was 4 of us that came the same day and it was like we started school on Tuesday, and we graduated from high school on the following Saturday. So all 4 of us came to school at that time. So we started at UT on Tuesday, actual classes, and then we went to our graduation ceremony on Saturday. So that was kind of weird, but it was kind of neat, Not many people do that. Start college before you get out of, graduate. But that's just how the schedule fell,
How'd that make you feel to be doing that?
I thought it was cool. I thought it was really pretty cool, yeah. And of course, the other 4 people were all white, and they thought it was really, they were so deserving of that and special. So I thought I was special too.
Absolutely. Do you recall knowing about the Heyman Sweat versus Painter case?
Did not. Not until after, probably not even the first couple of years. And then I started reading and understanding, more about it. Now, something I did feel was I felt the disparities, pretty soon. But I was very naive, didn't realize things like how I would go to a class assigned to me, not the first semester, but the second semester I would go to classes that I was assigned to, because you fill out, you can only take these particular classes as you progress. So you couldn't take sophomore classes because you're a freshman. So you have to take the freshman class or the prerequisite class first, or however that works. And so that was what I was trying to do and what I was told to do, and I was advised to do. And several classes I went to, well, just two mainly, that I went to, there was a drop form already filled out for me. Already, I'm stupid, I don't know. Already, and given to me in that class by that professor. And so I took it back to my advisor, and she said, "You can't drop this class. I don't know why you bringing this to me." I said, "Well, that's what he gave me." So she said, "You can't drop this class. You have to take this class before you can take, the next class, or you can take the next class." And so anyway, she said, and I know now, she should have done more in making sure. I just threw it away and went to class. There should have been some sort of, something else to support me going back to that class, because she just told me I couldn't use that, so I didn't know what to do. I had to go to class, so I just threw that away and showed up on Tuesday when it was time for class, and I continued for the rest of the semester, going to that class. Well, I was, it's, what is it, 200 people in the class? So I'm doing what everybody else does, going to class every day. I bought my books. I'm doing everything, And the first time that I took an exam, the second week I was in class, I asked something. I needed something to ask them something about. Oh, I couldn't get the book. That's what it was. The books were not in yet. And I could not get the book for that class, so I asked him, "What do I do?" And he said, go talk to somebody, whatever, who I didn't know that was anyway. So I went back to my counselor, and found out. She said, "Well, the books are coming in, you're going to be able to do that." So, and that wasn't really what I was trying to find out. I'm trying to find out why I can't communicate with this professor. And she just telling me, "Well, the book's going to be in, you'll be fine, da-da-da-da." And I'm like, this is not working right for me, But I just went on. I made it through the semester. Didn't do well on the first test. Did better on the next test. Didn't really do well on the final, But from talking to other people, they didn't do well on the final either. And ended up with a D in the class, which was not deserved, of course. I mean, I wasn't doing awful, but I wasn't doing D work. So that was very upsetting to me. It was very upsetting to me. I was really, because I'd never made a D ever. In all my years of school, I'd never made a D. And so I was like, I don't get this. So,
What?
was how I started at UT. This is my impression of UT now.
So what sense, like at that time, what sense did you make of that chain of events?
Well, I started to talk to some other black people, which they're rare, few and far between. There weren't any. Remember that I told you there was like 200 people in this class? There wasn't another one in that class. There may have been in another section, but the section I was in, there wasn't another black person in there. And I swear there were 200 people in that class. So that was, and I even tried to look for the friends that came with me to UT. They were not in that class either. They were in other sections, because it's a freshman class, you got to take it. So it was just frustrating. And my sense was, I'm not going to make it here. This is not, I'm ready to quit this. This is not going to work. But I couldn't. Number one, I was working. This class schedule fits into my work schedule. I had other things I had moved into an apartment. I had to pay rent. So I can't really shift this around very much. This is what I got to do. So I just buckled down and, said I'm going to make it. I retook the exam, and finally, whatever I did that was different allowed me to get a C in the class. So I just said, okay, this is life. This is where it's going to be. So just buckle down and get it.
So,
and that was just one. I had another one that was kind of the same way. Yeah, it was another class that I had also. And again, the drop slip was filled out for me. I didn't know that they do that. I didn't. But by now, I thought this is something you can do when you need, when they say you can't, you're not going to be, he told me, you're not going to be able to take this class. So I thought it was too full or some other reason, whatever. And, this was, I didn't know. That's the first time I ever been in a real college or anything. I'm barely grown up. So, didn't know. But anyway, we kind of went through the same thing. And except that there was no retaking, there was no nothing else. There was not a final exam. You had to pass it, which was, I heard, I figured that was a good thing, and I passed the first two and the last one, and so I ended up with a C in the class, which was, not awful, and I didn't have to take a final, so that was kind of cool, but I should have made better than a C, but, it was okay. But he never wanted me in that class either, so I'm stupid, I don't know. And nobody told me. Who was going to tell me?
Did you talk about that with any other students at the time?
No. Who was I going to talk to? Because I don't really know these people in class, especially all these white people in class. And I left class, straight from class. I got up in the morning and went to class. When I got out of class, I had to be at work at 2. When I got off of work, I had to go home and either do my homework or just chill. I'm working every day. So I did not work on Saturdays and Sundays on purpose because they allowed me to change my schedule like that. Well, I didn't work all day Saturday. I worked the Saturday morning. And I was off Saturday afternoon and all day Sunday because we weren't working on Sundays then. And so I had time to study. And I didn't work too late. Stores closed at 9 o'clock. So, they would close, the whole thing closed down at 9 o'clock. So I usually got off about 8. So, it was, because I was in school and it was enough. And one of the reasons I got off at 8 is because I could get home before real dark or real late. And I didn't work too far from there, so it was okay. So, it was okay. And I met a few friends, black friends, and started, kind of communicating with them about what they do. But none of them were in sciences. So they didn't have the same classes I had, that I was dealing with. And they, and they lived on campus. So, social hour for me was at home, chilling or working or talking to the friends that I worked with, none of whom were in college. They were either, grown-ups or was, just wasn't it. So I just didn't have the right kind of connections, so I guess fast forward, after that year, I'm learning my way around, and just sort of frustrated too because didn't know, none of that stuff should have happened, and it was not handled correctly, and nobody came in to say it wasn't handled correctly. And I kind of explained that to Mama Duran, who was, actually she was a dorm mother, who, I went to talk to because the next semester I needed to, another thing too, I couldn't drop the classes because I had a financial aid award. And if you drop your classes, you're going to have to give that award back or you're going to lose it. So that was what sort of a hinge. Anyway, she sent me to this person that was in the financial aid department, and he was saying like, this shouldn't have gone that way, and I want you to talk to Mama Duran. I think she's going to help you do some stuff and get some stuff together, and we're going to see if we can help you with some finances so that you won't have to work as much, and so that you can do your studies more, and we'll also try to get you a tutor, and just some things that I didn't even know existed, kind of stuff. So that was a good thing, and my experience with her was just really, really, comforting, because my own parents, who did not go to college and were not aware of all these, loopholes, or any of that stuff, we're not available. They couldn't really help me. They're working every day. I still have a sister and brother at home, so, and they weren't doing any high-powered jobs that would, help me financially. So I had to work to sustain my just living, and they really couldn't help me anymore. My dad did help me get a used car, so I wouldn't have a car note. So that helped me a lot, really. And my apartment was on a bus route, so I could go to school on the bus and come back home on the bus. And so some things, I thought a lot of things were working in my favor. It's just that experience at UT was so awkward, and I think back on it now, it's like, how ridiculous and mean was that? That was just terrible, and I should not have had to go through that.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to stop just for a second and say, your bracelets might be, is it picking up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not picking up.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so I have to ask, can you tell me about the first time that you met Mama Duran?
Oh.
Yeah.
Actually, it was when I went to financial aid to ask them about my funds for the next semester and if I had to do anything, because I got that D, and I wanted to make sure that wasn't going to, affect it. And that's when he told me to talk to her, and she was just a jewel. She's, come on in here, baby, like whatever. It's just, hey, I got you, and that was, it was really great. And she kind of talked me through this, and I told her about that one professor, and she says, he doesn't need to be treating you like that, and he shouldn't have. And she said, you should not have had to go through that, I'm like, well, I didn't know, so, all right, but. And I thank you. And when I think about it now, it was so mean. It was so mean. It was just really mean. And the next year was the end of my sophomore year. I got let's see, it was during the late spring. I had moved back home, and actually I had moved back home just at the end of the semester, because my apartment was doing some remodeling, so I couldn't stay there. Plus, I didn't have enough money to stay there through the summer. So for this time, I'd stayed in the summer before, but I needed to move home anyway, just to kind of save the money up for the next year or whatever. And so I had gotten a boyfriend. Oh boy, and he's my husband now. It's okay. So, but we went home. I went home to study, and he came over because he took me home to get some stuff because we were going to go study it that evening, right? So I really was going to study. He wasn't. but I really was going to go study for finals. And I think I had one final, and I was going to study for like 2 or 3 more finals, and so on. That while at home, the weather changed, and we lived. My parents lived in a mobile home where they lived and where I had lived before, and there was a tornado, full-blown real tornado, and both myself and my husband were hospitalized for 3 weeks, and all of my classes, of course, I received an F in all of my classes. And so by the time I recovered and all that stuff was over, and I went back to, because this is like the week, this was like dead week, for the university, because so we're studying for our finals, right? And even the class that I had already had a grade in, I had F in. And it was like, what the heck, So, so I thought, well, I'd have one. So, and I just thought I'd just go talk to him and tell him that I still need to take the final or whatever. A couple of them said, no, we're not, we're not going to be able to do that. You'll have to take the class over. So I said, okay, I just thought that meant you just take the class over and do it. And so I went, yeah, okay, I can take the class over. That's better than getting an F, so not a problem. A couple of my classes were like, one teacher I know, she was like, you know what? The same kind of thing happened to me when I graduated. She says, what did you have before this? And I said, well, these are my grades right here. She said, a B, right? And I said, you're right. And she said, okay, that's what you got. And I was like, thank you, And then those other 2 classes, they were like, well, you need to take the class over again. But you know what they made me do? I thought they meant you would start coming to the class and take the class over again. You don't have to re-register or anything like that. About 3 weeks into the class, I'm coming to the class every day because I changed my schedule so I can go to this class again. They said, no, it's late registration. You only have 2 days to register for this class. I said, but I already took the class. You told me I have to take the class over, but I already took it, and I just didn't take the final. And they said, no, you need to register for it again. So I said, okay, I'll go register for it again. Now I have a failure for the class, and now I'm registering to take the class again. So it doesn't change that I've already failed that class, which I shouldn't have because I never took the final. And now I'm registering to take this class again. Now I'm already attending it, but, and trust me now, I only know this after the fact. I didn't know when I was going through it that they were, shooting me down like that. But both of those classes, and one was a science class and one was a micro class. One was biology and one was a microbiology class. So they were both, along the same lines. Well, I think one was chemistry actually, and the other one was a biology class. And they both had labs. The labs, I had already finished anyway. So I have 2 labs that I have A in. And I have 2 classes, and the lab's like, 1 credit, maybe? And then I have 2 Fs for the classes. And now I'm taking those classes again, but he says, well, you won't have to take the lab again, which is fine. Yeah, sure. But now I have 2 grades for this class and 2 grades for this, and one of them's already, an F. It was X turned to F because he didn't change it. Anyway, so that was another, and these are traumatizing to me. Yeah, and I'm trying to work. I'm trying to, be on my own. I'm trying to, live. What the hey?
Right.
So anyway, so this is just an example of the trauma that I went through as a student. And I found out too that some of the other students were dealing with the same kind of crap, except that they weren't working. You know, they either had financial aid or parents that were supporting them. And they had a community. They lived on campus. You know, they were dealing with other, they had homework study groups. You know, so there were a lot of things that I think that attributed to their success as opposed to me not having those things too. And so, you know, here it is. I'm trying to you know, to keep up. You know, my little feet are going as fast as they can, you know, and keep up. And so I met a friend, Regina, and she started kind of being my support person, you know. And she also started working, you know, at the mall. And so that kind of helped too. So I had somebody that was also working, even though she was working for her money because her mother paid for everything, you know, parents, I mean, even her car. So it's like, hey, you know, it's not, you're not really working, you're just working, you know. So I'm working because I need to eat, you know. So it was a little bit different, but she was a lifesaver to me, both socially and, you know, in all kinds of ways, because she was just a person to say, hey, you're okay, you know, and you can do this, and that's okay. You better get yourself up and do this, or you should, you know, you got to do this. And so she was a really, really, really good support for me. And we made it through that. And after I got back from the tornado, that next semester was not very good for me. It was just too much. It was just, you know, I couldn't make up those 2 courses, you know, so I dropped out. I just couldn't do it. It was just too much. You know, those extra X's, I just couldn't do it. My mind couldn't do it. There was nobody academically that would help me figure out what this was, you know, just, so and scholastically, it just all went to hell, you know. I actually just said, you know, I just can't do it right now, you know. So I kind of dropped out right there. And so I got this little letter that says, you know, you're going to be on scholastic probation for this next semester, so you can't go to school anyway. So I was like, fine. I didn't want to do it anyway. So that was that. So the next spring, you know, because that went through the fall, came back to school, went to a counselor. She said, well, you need to go talk to these people and see if they can work something out with you, because you really didn't need to have those on your thing. So again, one of the professors was still there. The other one was not still there, but the new professor tried to do the same thing. Tried to make me apply. He said, you're going to have to register for this class. And so I went back to the counselor. I said, he's making me register for this class again. And she said, well, go ahead and register for the class. I will adjust that for you. So, you know, instead of trying to engage with that guy, she said, just do it and I'll fix it for you. And I was like, gosh, a person really understands, you know, this is really going to work. But the other guy in the chemistry class, he wanted me to register again. And I said, no, I'm already registered. Look at your roster. I'm already registered. It's not, you know, it's still there. I have an incomplete, not an X. It's incomplete. So he said, so anyway, but he still made me jump through some hoops, which was okay because I had forgotten everything I ever knew anyway. So that's what I did, and finally went through that. Although at the end of the semester, he didn't have time to change my grade, so it went on till the time I got ready to register for the next semester before he changed my grade. And so being on scholastic probation and coming off scholastic probation, I needed to have that grade in there before, you know, by the end of the semester, but he didn't do it. And he went, I don't know, maybe London or somewhere, and he hadn't changed my grade. So I was, you know, reeling again, but, you know, anyway. But life is okay. I mean, I won.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I think you kind of covered one of the questions that I have, which is, what are your first impressions? What were your first impressions when you came to UT?
Well, I was impressed, of course, as everyone else. I came from a little school, and I think there was, you know, a little maybe 100 and something people in my graduating class. You know, other kids came from like there's 500 of them. You know, so it wasn't, you know, and the big university was really, it was a big thing. You know, my experiences had not been very well from the beginning, but I was conquering it. You know, I was doing a lot of catching up and understanding how things were. I felt like what I was allowing to happen to me, but it wasn't really. I didn't know any better, you know, and so I was catching on, and you know, Mama Durun steered me to that advisor rather, who told me about just take this class and I'll fix it for you. That was one of her, you know, that was one of her people that she sent me to help out the situation. And also I had a couple of more friends that I met who were actually dealing with some stuff too, and it worked out good. I met one more person that was in a biology class that I had, Shay, and I was like, really? You're in this class? And yeah, so, but she lived on campus. So, you know, I got a schedule here.
Right.
So I didn't have a lot of time to do that. So, you know, but it was good.
You've sort of talked about this already, but I'll just go ahead and ask. And if you feel like you've covered what you need to cover, then we'll just go forward from there. How did what your actual experience was compare or differ from your expectations?
Oh, well, those expectations were kind of shot to heck, you know, from my experiences, because, you know, I think the main thing is I was no longer proud of my experience here, you know. It wasn't like, you know, it was the big university I was ever accepted as, you know, the only thing, and that was kind of like the thing that drove me to continue, because, you know, I didn't want it to beat me, which is what the game plan was, I felt, you know, from even getting here, just trying to survive here, and that's kind of the way I went. You know, it's, you know, you're not gonna beat me here. I'm gonna keep on, and I'm gonna get this done. And I could have gone back at the end of that semester after I was off scholastic probation. I didn't. I stayed off for the next fall term, and I got married in October. And I started a new job, and I waited till the spring, and I gotten a letter that said he changed my grade, which was kind of good. I mean, a year later, but it's okay. So they did retro all that and fix my grade up. And I said, okay, well, now I'm just going to go and finish what I needed to finish. So I went back. Also, thanks to my advisor, she said, at that time, they had not changed those other classes that I failed, that I never did finish. They were still on my transcript. So that, you know, gosh, man, an F on your transcript, an X changed to an F on your transcript, you take a really big hit on a 3-hour class with an X, you know, with an F. Anyway, so the advisor said there was nothing she could do because they would have to do that. Anyway, so but she did tell me, don't take them here. Go to ACC and take these classes, and you can do them at the same time and get back on track. And I went, oh, okay. So I did that, and I got those 2 classes, you know, taken care of. They were prerequisite classes, remember, so that's why I had to take them. So I did that, got that done, and I'm on sure footing now, and I'm coming back, and now my GPA is a 2.25 at least. So it's like, okay, I can do this. And I'm married. After a year and a half, I was pregnant, and then I'm fixing to have my son. So I went to school that semester. They didn't take too kindly for pregnant people to be in class then. It was kind of a weird time, you know. So it was a little rough there. Plus, I was taking tennis, which the professor says that he wanted me to not take tennis anymore because because he found I was pregnant. I went, people play tennis pregnant all the time. It's not going to hurt me. And he says, well, I'm not going to allow you to do, to be on court these times. I went, that has nothing to do with me being able to play tennis. I mean, this is not like we're in the professionals or anything. I can play tennis. I mean, I have my court assignments. I'll be fine. So anyway, that was kind of rough because he wanted me to drop the class. And I said, no, I don't have to drop the class. I'm fine. Anyway, so that was depressing. But anyway, I went ahead and took the class, made an A in the class. I think mostly because he was just messing with me, just because. So that was fine. So anyway, I needed these. My advisor told me to take these little classes because any little A would help you bring your GPA back. Mm-hmm. So if you took these classes, they won't be a lot, but at least we're just talking about getting the GPA back up. It doesn't matter. And even if they're 2-hour classes or if they're 1-hour classes, any of those would help because they had still not refused to take those X's off of my transcript. Anyway, so life went on. I finally finished, so.
Tell me about your community of friends while you were at UT.
Two things. Number one, I was going to join a sorority, and I had just come back from my accident and being hospitalized and all that stuff. Just come back. Excuse me. And I was on a line, and we'd started our, pledging. And then I guess about 3 weeks in, they received a letter or something that says that I was not eligible because my GPA the semester before had been drastic, and that they didn't want to have that impede my success or progress because I was just coming off of scholastic probation and I just finally got a decent GPA, and they didn't want to do that. And we're like, but I've already been through a couple of weeks of hell, so what the hey, so I was really upset about that, but it's not worth the fight. So anyway, so I stopped pledging and just went on and attended school and finished, in school.
So you mentioned a few folks that you were friends with.
Mm-hmm.
One of them worked with you at the mall.
Mm-hmm.
And were there other folks that you hung out with?
When I started to pledge, those guys I kind of hung out a little bit with. But again, it made a difference because they all lived on campus. Except for the friend that worked at the mall, she moved into an apartment. And so I started visiting her apartment, or either she at mine, and that worked out. And then, so it was just mostly the two of us for a while, who hung together. We knew other people, and the people that were pledging, and of course, they went on with their pledging and all that stuff. Even she was in the same line. So they went on so there was some departure in our, the time we spent together. But yeah, and then there were one of my best friends, life friends, who I just met, you just met a few minutes ago. We became friends because our husbands were friends. And neither one of them were our husbands then, but they were friends. And so we started to socialize together, go on to do things together, socially, and go out or whatever. And I just didn't have a lot of friends. I've never been a lot of friends person anyway, but I always had a few close friends. And it's been those people, and that's since then. So that was, 1973, so... actually it's 75, but still, it's been just those few people. And Jay's been with me since 1975. Yeah. So she's
what
a
did you
good
do
friend.
for fun?
I made my own fun. I didn't really have to have, I like to cook. I like to sew. I like to listen to music and just hang. I just did my own stuff. I used to watch movies, and at the time, I would go to matinees, or I would go to play tennis, which was fun for me, even though, it was not as accessible as it is now. You have to go to one of the UT courts, which is fine. But hey, it didn't bother me. I would go down there, and whoever was playing, I said, well, how much longer you gonna be here? Fine. No, you don't have to leave. I just want to know if I can play with you. So then that worked out over at Intramurals. It was great. So I just did that, and my most favorite thing at that time was kite flying. So, me and a kite, we could have a whole afternoon together. So it was not a problem at all. Yeah. So, and then when I wanted to find somebody or just hang out with somebody, I'd go over to Mama Duran's, and she'd say, well, go over there and talk to so-and-so, or somebody else would be in her office. And so, have you met this person? And I said, no. So we go meet that person, and then, hey, hang out or whatever. Or I'd go to the Black Room. The Black Room was a place on campus that everybody went.
Tell me about the Black Room. Tell me more about it.
The Black Room was I'm not sure if it started out as a study hall maybe, but that's where a lot of people who were skipping classes or who just needed a place to go, and only black people went there though. No white people went there. And this is a white university, so it was a sacred little place, And so we go there, and, you'd hear our music. Sometimes they'd be playing dominoes, rocks. Sometimes they'd be, playing cards, or just chilling, and sometimes you just be there, just, hey, I feel you, dude. That's all you need to say, and just stay there until, till you had to go to class, or till somebody ran you out and made you go to your class, or, or something, It was just a nice place to just kind of, hey, for a minute, give me a breath. And that's the way it was for me and a lot of people. And I have to say, too, something I noticed a few years ago when we were talking about that. It was always more guys there than girls. But still, just to give you an idea of how the pressure was, because we're all in college, and we're all, whether we acknowledge or not, dealing with the same crap. Everybody's dealing with the same crap, the same pressures, the same, and not all of us had brilliant study skills, or, we were at the top of our classes at the high schools that we went to, but this was a different animal, Whatever we studied and however we studied in high school, it was much easier than when you came to college. I don't care who you were. It was different, or when you came to this college. It was different for you. I mean, the isolation, the disassociation, the lack of society, or, the people that were in the dorms, I think, did better because they did have some sort of social release. And you had other people, around you. Those of us that were from the city who didn't hang out in the dorms, or didn't have the community, in the midnight hours when people need to study for an exam or cram, we didn't have that kind of thing. Or those of us who actually had jobs they had to go to, and weren't able to do that. It was a little bit different. But for all of us, hey, the Black Room was a sacred place,
It kind of relates to the next question that I have, which is, what was your relationship with the wider black community in Austin while you were at UT?
I was the community, so like many of us, church on Sunday, those are peeps. So they had your back, and for a lot of the people that were not from here, of course, they went to several different community churches, as a group. The churches either sent their bus to pick them up, or they went over to several of the bigger churches, especially as a group. I became friends with several of the athletes, and I just drug them to church with me on Sunday. Made them come with me, Earl, Lionel, different people, and I would make them come on special occasions, just because I know that the little kids at my church were impressed by them and that they were my friend. So I made them go to my church, so the little kids can get their autographs and, do stuff like that. And they were happy to do that for me. So, it was good. Yeah, Earl went a couple of times with me to church.
So in addition to the Black Room, were there other spaces where you felt welcomed at UT?
I had one professor who was one of the people that gave me an F for my class. And when I talked to him about it, I wanted to talk to him about it, and I was like, but I think his name was Ellison. Yeah. He was like, well, I don't know. It's, his TAs, I think, they just based on whatever they read. They didn't know me, whatever. And they just did all his grades and sent everything through. And he says, yeah, but I don't remember, I don't remember you or any of that stuff. I don't remember any of that stuff or whatever. And I said, but you made me take this class again, And so anyway, he told me, he says, well, I need you to help me finish this. He was working on some big project that he had just gotten grant funded or whatever. And he says, well, I need you to help me do this, and when you finish this, we'll go ahead and see about getting your grade changed and whatever. So I started working with him in his lab, just about the amount of time as it would be to take the class. And so it didn't affect my work schedule and all, I had a real life going on. So that worked, that worked out well for me. So, even though it took him forever to change my grade, but at least it gave me some experience. It gave me some, some kind of background support knowledge for the class, and it also prepared me for the next class I was taking, that kind of stuff. So that was kind of good, But socially, there wasn't a lot of social support around, but there were those little few people here and there that you had to kind of make your way in, by some hook or crook or whatever, to get their attention, to care about whatever you cared about, or to care about you, period. And so other than Mama Duran or whoever she exposed you to, there really wasn't a lot. And I didn't have the family support, because not that they didn't love me, or want to support me. They really didn't have the resources to do that. They didn't have, they just didn't have a lot of stuff, a lot of ways of supporting me. So I was just kind of on my own to do that. And except for my friends, the few that I had, I was just out there.
What did your family think about you attending UT?
Oh, they were impressed. They liked it. They thought it was good. They were real proud of me, And that was another thing, too. I couldn't expose them to all this craziness I was going through, because they were so proud of me for having gotten there and for doing this, and keeping going and all this stuff. And, and my mom was a little upset about me having to, not get back in after the tornado. Because remember, the tornado, I had nothing. To this day, I still have no records of anything that I had. I don't have my graduation. I don't have my any records. I don't have any, except for after the tornado. I don't have any papers. I don't have anything. I lost everything. So, fortunately for me, they mailed my diploma right after that. So I do have it. So it was,
Were there other spaces that you felt most at home at during your time at UT?
You mean other than the black room?
Yeah.
No, I was really after we kind of found a common ground, I would go to that lab a lot because I kind of liked working with him in the lab. So that was one good place, and then again the black room was that was the place you can just kind of go and be, and so that was good. That was a good place. And then of course my apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So
Besides the experience that you had when you were initially pledging,
mm-hmm.
were there other organizations or activities that you were involved in while you were at UT?
I started joining the choir, the black choir, but they had rehearsals and I had to go to work. So I really didn't, I went a couple of times, but I wasn't able to really participate, so I really wasn't, I didn't have to. And then I was older too.
Mm.
So, they had a lot of freshmen in their class.
So looking back, how would you say coming to UT and attending college here, how did that impact you?
I think that it allowed me to get some real backbone because things were not easy, and I had to really make my way. I had to learn the hard way, not to feel like people are going to be just fair to you. They're not, and they weren't, and they would do. I was so naive to think that they would just let me make up my classes, or that they would not give me a D when I had made grades better than that. Why would you do that? Or to give me a drop slip already filled out with my name on it. How can you do that? I didn't know any better. I thought that's what's supposed to happen or they didn't have any room. To this day it upsets me because why would anybody do that? Why would you do that?
So
how could you do that? How could you do that? What? Serious?
So the professor whose lab you ended up working in,
Mm-hmm.
was he one of those people?
He was one, and I found out that he was one of those people because that was after the tornado. He was one of those people that just gave me a failing grade. But when I went to talk to him about it, when I initially he made me register again. That was just him blowing me off. When I went back to him after I registered again, that's when I talked to him and I told him, "You made me register for this class again. This is where we are. I need you to change that other grade too." And that's how I got to know him then, because that was his initial response. It's not, and it wasn't like he didn't know who I was. He knew who I was. You know what I'm saying? It was like, that's something he does to everybody. It wasn't something he does to everybody. He knew who I was. He did it on purpose, or whoever works for him did it on purpose. Because other people get it. I understand. Other people get an I. You get it incomplete. Even if you don't know the story, or even if whatever happens, if you don't take the file, you just get an incomplete. Because you didn't take the file. You don't just give them an F. Or you don't make them take the class again. Either way. So anyway, after we got to know each other a little bit, and I talked to him about that and figured out, I'm like, look, I don't know how this works, but this doesn't seem right. And after he listened to me, and after I talked to him about that stuff, and after he told me, well, I need you to work in my lab. Why don't you do this? and and actually he did. I remember he told me, "You're still gonna have to take the final." And I'm like, "What the?" Even after, but he didn't make me take the final again. So at the end of it, but I'm just like, I work for you the whole semester. You ought to pay me, and not let me take the final. So, but anyway, he turned out to be a pretty decent person. But why me? I don't know why. But I guess it was just a change in the mentality of people. Because this happened, remember, the next year I didn't come back. So it was the following year when I came back. And that's when I talked to him about it. Because, GPA was already shot. There was nothing that anybody could do. And that's one of the things she told me. You're going to have to go talk to these people and kind of see what they can do. Because she couldn't do anything because it's been so long. But.
So you, before our interview, had shared that you've done teaching and mentoring in math and science
right
during your professional life.
Uh-huh.
Is there a connection between that and your experiences at UT?
I think that mostly is because many times, especially in math and science, has to be this little click thing where you say, oh, I got it kind of thing. I know what that experience is like, and I know that you got to have that to be successful in those classes. And many times, there are little blanks, especially in students that are in middle school and even in sometimes in high school because they missed it before, that they just don't. It just doesn't get it. So they say, I hate science. Well, you don't really hate it. You just don't understand it, and you just haven't taken advantage of the opportunities that you have to catch that and be successful in it. And I see that all the time when they get it, and it's wonderful, And when they get it, they're like, oh no, this is what I was afraid of, And yeah, this is all you were afraid of all this time. And I know for not only just in my experiences, but all academically, if you can conquer math and science, you can just about conquer everything. You already know how to read. Okay, and you know how to read. If you know math and science, you know how to make judgments, and to make futuristic type of opinions. So if you can get math and science, you can pretty much get anything else, because you can put those things. I mean, excuse the pun, 2 and 2 together, and I think it's really good. And I that's why I think that my strengths in helping others learn math and science as a stronghold or as a base for their own successes has been a lot of my joy. So that's why I choose those two.
Thank you. So how do you think things have changed for African American students at UT?
Well, having a son who has gone through UT, a couple of things. Their generation responds a little differently because he came up with being a majority, and all his life he's been in an integrated school except for the first 3 years when he was in Montessori. Forget all that. But still, he's always had, all of his friends have been white. All of his colleagues have been white. He's always, and they have a different attitude and perspective as well. So the newer generation doesn't have the separation that we had. I don't think there was any of his professors, any of his professors who blatantly treated him like I was treated or any of us were treated, and I think that this generation, is more aware too. I was not aware. I didn't know I was being blasted. I had no idea. I kept going, what is wrong with me that that this is happening? And it wasn't me, but the newer generation they kind of adapt to this, and they know how to combat it. They know how to stand up for it and against it and knock it out, right away, and so I think that their experiences are so much more different. Now, there is still, even my son, who's now working on his doctorate from UT, expresses sometimes how he thinks the racism, or he identifies it rearing its head again, even at this stage in his, forever career here at UT. But they respond to it differently, There are things, he just doesn't take it. He doesn't, he's on a level where he doesn't have to tolerate it, and he can flush it out and knock it down, And even though he witnesses it, or he may experience it, he knows he has enough experience of his own, as well as acknowledgement of other students, having to endure stuff, that he is able to, hey, this is not right, this is not going to happen, And one of the fortunate things, I think, is that he now has position enough to make that, shine a line on it, expose it, and make a difference for it. And that's kind of what I'm most proud of with him, because he understands, how things that are not right need to be stopped. It doesn't, he doesn't want anybody to have to endure stuff like the craziness, And he's able to, unlike myself, recognize it, from the beginning when it starts, So I think that's one of the ways that things have changed, because I think the students and the young people who are experiencing UT now, number one, have a better attitude, a different attitude, and that they're different people. The generation is just different people now. And although I won't say that all of those people are the people in administration or the teachers or the faculty are all with this by any stretch of the imagination, that the awareness of the students is going to stomp much of it out and not allow it to affect them in a negative way.
So, thinking back over our conversation, what other things would you like to share that you want people to know?
I think mostly that a lot of precursors have some real wounds. I know that I have several of my friends who are precursors that are graduated from here. Their only good thing about this that they look on is, when you write the University of Texas down on your transcript, or on your application or whatever, it speaks volumes for it, Then you don't have to tell them about the humility, but it'll help you get what you need, and that's what we use it for, So, and to me, it's kind of sad that has to be the end story of it, but it's just the truth, The University of Texas, the name of itself, the legacy in terms that it holds in the world, is valuable, No one really knows the struggle that many of us had to endure, whether cognizant or ignorant. But it does, When you have that name behind you, and they can't take that away once you've got it, Thank goodness. It does. It holds its value, and forget, or not to forget rather, how much other people had to endure just to make sure that they got it, and it still holds its value. So regardless of how much pain or influence or lack of that you had to go through, just to get it, but it's important. So that's kind of where we are. You don't have to be happy about it, but you know, it's worth it. I guess it's worth it to finally get that and to have that. You know, it doesn't have. I don't think it has to be or should have been, but you know, when you write down the University of Texas, there's a lot of doors that can open for you just because you're able to do that. And that's why we did it, you know. So, and that's why our students still do it, you know. So that's kind of what the way I think of it, you know. Yeah, but I'm, you know. So people ask me, how was your life at UT? You know, yeah. I got my degree. That's what I say. Hey, I still have my degree. They can't take it away. So, there you go.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
Really
Sorry about
appreciate
the
it.
other stuff.
Oh, there's no apology needed. I appreciate you being open, and I just want to thank you again for trusting me with your story. I think it's going to be important for a lot of people.
Well, you're welcome.